When reading the Bible, you're oftentimes going to be confronted with different acts of God that you don't fully understand, explicitly in the Old Testament.
Bible reading tips. You're going to be confronted with some different acts of God that you don't fully understand, mostly in the Old Testament. He uses the word explicitly here. However,
you keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
This is an argument for his ways are not our ways, and if God is evil, then you're viewing it wrong. Or, and hear me out, the God of the Bible is evil. The example he uses for why it's a bigger picture that allegedly we are the pawns in this God's allegory is Job. If you're not familiar, and just for fun, I found a ChatGPT summary using Gen Z slang.
You also lose this dude named Job, right? Homeboy was living his best life, stacking mad dough with a big crib and a fam that was on fleek. But then out of nowhere, the big man upstairs with Satan had a little chat. Satan was like, yo, I bet Job only praises you because you've got his back. Take away his riches and he'll bounce real quick. So God's like, bet, do your thing, but don't touch him. Next thing you know, Job's world gets turned upside down. He loses everything, his fam, his bling, even his health. Talk about a major L. But get this, fam, Job stays steady. He's like, I may be down, but I ain't out. He keeps his faith and stays solid, even when his so-called friends start clowning him and saying he must have done something to deserve it. After a grip of hardships, God finally steps in and sets things straight. He shows up like, y'all thought Job was a faker? Nah, he's legit. God restores Job's blessings doublefold and even hooks him up with a new fam. The moral of the story, my peeps: life's gonna throw you some serious curveballs, but stay true to yourself, stay faithful, and keep hustling. In the end, you'll bounce back and flex harder than ever before. Job's story is all about resilience and keeping it real, even when the chips are down.
So as I was saying, God makes this bet and is completely indifferent to all the suffering and unalivings he caused. And then he says, I'll fix it. Look, you have a new wife, and you can make new kids. Your other wife and kids didn't matter anyways.
Remember, we don't die. We merely change locations. If this life is all we have, then God is completely evil for not assuring that every single person has a happy life. Completely evil.
We don't die. We merely change locations. He is saying what I have been saying, which is the crutch of Christianity. This life, the one that we know that we have, is nothing more than a stopping place, a place to wipe your feet before moving on to the real life. It's the promise to sell you a magnificent home, but you have to buy it before I can show it to you. And it's just going to cost your cognitive faculties. How much could you possibly need those anyways? I agree with him in a certain aspect. If a God existed and this was the only life we had, then that God would be completely evil.
But if this isn't even the true reality, if there's a more real reality, a more longer lasting reality than this will ever be, then it's yes and amen.
Then he runs back to a safe zone with what I expressed already. If this life is just a place to wipe our feet, then it doesn't matter what happens here anyways. I disagree. No amount of time removes the pain and suffering that someone goes through if it could have been prevented in the first place.
Number two, ask yourself, if the characters in the story don't see it the way you do, if Job didn't see it that way, if Jacob didn't see it that way, if Abraham did not see it that way, then why are you seeing it that way? And why didn't they? Here's the more important question. Why didn't they see it as the evil that you perceive it to be?
There's this idea that, well, if they didn't see it that way, why do you? The answer? Social advancements. The mere fact that at the time people were seen as expendable doesn't remove their value. Less than 200 years ago, the color of someone's skin placed them among less desirable and ergo less than human in society. That didn't make their lives and sacrifices less valuable. We don't say, well, since slave owners didn't see slaves as humans, why do you see it that way? This is more of the same. Society changes as we get better information and utilize more understanding of the perspective of that person. We act accordingly and change the society to do better.
Number three, go to God in prayer about these things.
Then number three, talk to yourself about it and see if you can convince yourself that maybe you should accept that slavery was okay. Oh shit, is that a Republican talking point? I think it is. In conclusion, and to get serious for a moment here, his advice, if you want to call it that, is full of holes. If you don't understand something, what I recommend is that you actually dig into it more. See where these don't align with your values, and if they don't, then maybe ask why you still give it any more credence than, say, Mother Goose nursery rhymes. The God of the Bible, Old and New Testament, has been attributed with a litany of atrocities and crimes against humanity. I don't find anything about the character of this God to be morally redeemable or worthy of any kind of consideration or worship. And if he existed and would in fact send me to hell for refusing to worship such a being, then I would happily go to hell knowing I am more moral than the thug who sentenced me there. The concept that this God is a good and moral God if we only squint our eyes, cock our head to the side, and see it from a different perspective is an entirely egregious and pathetic attempt to paint morality into an immoral being. To its own detriment, the entire purpose and message of Christianity is to accept that despite everything within existence demonstrating the contrary, that this falsehood is true, and that if you don't understand something, it's based on your own incompetent dereliction. It is your own shortcomings, not the fact that this book was written in a time when we had no understanding of the germ theory of disease, let alone that human experience changes from one person to the next. I've said it before. If you want to know what is wrong with slavery, ask the slave. If you want to know what's wrong with anti-trans laws being implemented or anti-reproductive health care targeted towards uterus holders, ask the people being marginalized. The ends will never justify the means. This God, in this fictional book, using people as a means to paint his allegorically larger picture, if it were true, is horrendous in every aspect. So go out and enjoy your Saturday, and remember tomorrow is Sunday. If you don't sin, Jesus died for nothing. Until next time, friends.